Get off your ass.
Not that bad. I can lose 10 pounds or so.
You don't need a place to work out.
This actually matches the frame of my body.
Stop making excuses.
Who am I kidding?
It's really easy to tell someone to just quit being lazy or get off of your ass or why don't you just eat better food? But one thing we're not considering is that people have trauma. And when people have trauma, they dissociate. People that dissociate aren't in touch with reality at all times. So if you're having a problem being motivated, if you're having a problem doing things that are best for you, and you find yourself judging yourself or you listen to other people's judgments of you, to realize there's more to this than just getting off your ass. There is a way to get in touch with why you check out, why you dissociate. It's just an itty bitty trance. We all get there. If you can snap out of it and reassociate with your highest self.
Going here. All right, we are live. Hey, everybody, welcome. This is Coach Jerry here, and we are live on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. I want to thank you for tuning in now or tuning in later whenever you decide you can make it. All right, I will be checking comments as we go through this. So welcome, guys. Just as a reminder, I am Coach Jerry Kuykendall. I own Biohacking Truth, and I'm a holistic health practitioner and professional. I am licensed and certified through the Chek Institute, a student of Paul Chek. If you've heard of him, you know who he is. If you haven't, you should go check him out, especially if you're into health and being happy in life. Guy's the man. But anyway, I want to thank you guys for joining me today. And what I want to share with you all today in this video, what we're going to talk about, or in this live stream, is we're going to talk about motivation. And motivation is something that's worth its weight in gold. And in my opinion, we're really missing a lot of gold when we're trying to help people find motivation. We typically, look to motivation through very narrow focused sources, and it's very minimal in what's available out there to find your personal motivation. What we're actually utilizing compared to what we could be utilizing is just a drop in the bucket. So today, what I want to share is one of the most effective ways I've found to get people motivated. And it's something that's really not talked about a lot. And that is our emotional triggers. That is our emotional trauma. And while triggers and trauma are being talked about a lot in the space right now, what's not being done, in my opinion, is linking that to motivation or lack of motivation. So what brought this on? What brought this thought in my head? Well, like you guys, I see a lot of things on the internet, and through the course of my dancing around in the fitness space and the health space, I come across a lot of fitness influencers. And while the fitness influencers mean well, I think at the end of the day, they're just trying to pump their brand, and they're using what they know. And a lot of times what they're using to motivate people is pretty abusive. While there's a time and a place to tell someone, stop making excuses, get off your ass, you don't need a gym to work out. Well, there's a time and a place for that. I think it really gets overexpressed and overutilized. And the reason why I say that is because there are a lot of us, like 100% of us, that are walking around in some sort of state of trauma. And whether that's big T or small t trauma, trauma is trauma, and it creates triggers, it creates emotional energy, it creates brain engram patterns that we are responsible for dealing with. And without realizing why somebody is lacking motivation or is not taking action, it's really hard to get them out of that space. And what I see over and over again with my clients and my prospects is they are showing up with this abusive mindset towards themselves and towards their health and fitness. And it's because they're listening to the David Goggins, the Tanner Shucks, these people out there. And I love Tanner Shuck. I love David Goggins. I want to throw that out there. I love their style. I love their content. I just think that if someone is only utilizing that type of motivation, they are dealing with something within themselves, a belief within themselves that points to not only being okay and accepting being talked to that way, but that they feel that they need to be talked to that way to get motivated. And if that's the case, if that's the space you're in, if you feel like you need to be spoken to that way to get some action done, then really take a look at where that's coming from. Like, what do you believe about yourself? What part of your value system matches that, right? Because that really is an abusive mindset. It's an abusive style. Now, if that's a coach's only way to get through to you, then that is a true abusive coaching relationship. If a coach uses that as part of their arsenal of motivation and keeping you accountable, well, then I would say that's a very versatile coach. Okay. So that's just my take on it. It's just my opinion. And anything I'm going to talk about today is no attempt at providing medical advice, giving any sort of a diagnosis, cure, or anything like that. So I just want to keep that clear. So as we break into this motivation, and particularly the kind of motivation that keeps us from taking action and or sustaining action. So we're going to talk about, why do we do that? Why do we do that? Why do we not do things that we know are best for us? Why do we settle for living in a state of misery and poor health, knowing that all we have to do is change a few habits, make a few adjustments, and we're likely going to feel 100% better within a year? We all know that, but why do we not take the action? Are we stupid? Are we lazy? Do we hate ourselves? I don't think so. From what I see, that's generally not the case. We have self-love issues, sure. Self-acceptance issues, sure. But more often than not, what I see is an emotional dysregulation. A lot of it stemming from unhealed trauma. And what that does to us is that keeps us stuck, that keeps us frozen. Okay. And how does it do that? Well, at the time that we experienced a traumatic event, we weren't prepared for it, which is why it's trauma. Stacy, Delta, Rhoda, thank you guys for tuning in. Appreciate it. But that's why it's traumatic, right? Because we weren't prepared for it. We didn't know how to deal with it. And so we kind of detached, we dissociated from the event so that we could survive. And then we create this pattern because we get a positive feedback loop. We didn't die. So it worked. It kept us surviving, right? And we developed this pattern. And as more traumatic events come through in life, we utilize the same pattern. And, we start compartmentalizing events. We don't really unpack them. We never dissolve the trauma. We don't trace that back to our false core. We don't realize how that ties into our personality's core motivations. And then we get in this conflated state, what we call disintegration. And that plays out in our life at multiple times per day. Even when we source it, even when we get in touch with it, we know how to dismantle and dissolve it, it still is in play in our life. So what happens is you got somebody who's an adult. They maybe experienced something when they were a child or later on in life, but they created this dissociation around these feelings that they don't want to feel, this energy that they create. And the energy might be called anxiety. It might be called sadness. It might be called anger. It might be called confusion, but they create this negative energy. And that negative energy is what they're experiencing when they start doing their internal dialogue around their current state. And, this internal dialogue, this inner critic might be saying things like, why don't you just get off your ass? Why do you eat that garbage? Don't you know? Don't you know better? If any of you saw the video rant I posted yesterday, that guy doesn't have a loud enough internal critic. That guy's got a real permissive inner critic, right? Around his lifestyle anyway. Maybe not so much around his academic career or his status as a scientist, but that particular individual, Pierre Hotez, has a very permissive inner critic when it comes to his health. But I digress. So we get this inner critic voice when we start realizing just how much weight we've put on, or just how far our skin conditions gotten out of whack, or just how bad we really are sleeping lately, or how sedentary we become. So that slowly sinks into us. And then we start realizing, and then we go into the shame, blame, judgment game. And then that enacts these traumatic triggers, right? And so when we get these triggers, what we want to do is we just want to dissociate with it, because that's what we've been doing. So when you've got somebody that's not taking action, that's just sitting on the couch, not doing the things that they know is best for them. They're not stupid. They're not lazy. They probably don't hate themselves. They're just dissociating. They are just dissociating. I'd like to share with you a client experience that I had recently, and this will kind of highlight exactly what I'm talking about. For some of you, this might ring crystal clear. For some of you, you might be having a hard time really conceptualizing it. But I'll just read directly from my blog from this morning, where I posted about it. But if you don't get how this works, basically we create this dissociation, but really what we're doing is we're creating a trance. We get in this trance of our beliefs, our negative beliefs about ourselves, our own self-doubt, our own inner critic. We start believing our inner critic, and we get in this little trance. And it could be a poor me trance. It could be I'm a failure trance. It could be I'm a loser trance, something like that. But this very negative self-reflection or self-assessment. And then we create a trance. And then what that abusive motivation does, that get off your ass, what that stuff does is it snaps you out of that trance, right? But it puts you in another one. It puts you in another trance, a trance of I need to be beat up, or I need to be slapped into action, or I need to be put in my place. I need to come to Jesus meeting. That's a dependency, right? So we create another trance of dependency, right? And we still are hanging on to those beliefs, where those beliefs are, I'm not worthy, I can't do, I don't know, I'm vulnerable and powerless. Whatever it is, that's what we call schemas pointing towards our false core. Whatever those are, you're still hanging on to those, right? So you've taken yourself from not knowing how to do what you need to do to get out of this situation to getting some help, which is always advisable to get some help, but get some good help. Don't get some abusive help. And if you've got an abusive coach or an abusive trainer, an abusive guide in any way, shape, or form, and they want you to depend on them, you're going to maintain that dependence. You're going to maintain that dependence, and you'll still be left thinking, I don't know, I'm unworthy, I can't do. Okay. So that's how that works. And we get in a trance. And if any of you doubt this trance effect, just take a look at what happened the last 3 years during the pandemic, the plandemic. Right? We believed some ridiculous shit because we were stuck in a mass formation trance. And I'm not going to go into that. You guys know how I feel about all that. I'll just leave it at that. Not the time or place. So let me share this example with you. So I had a client not too long ago, and this is actually a culmination of a couple different clients to make it not so obvious who this particular client is, but it comes together really nicely. So this woman that I've been working with, she'd grown overweight, and it's a slow thing, right? 5 pounds a year, 10 pounds a year, or 10 pounds in a couple years. Next thing you know, you're 30 pounds overweight. And that's where she found herself, right? She never really took a fast downhill slide. So as she was slowly putting weight on, she also was noticing a decreased ability to breathe properly, excess mucus in the lungs. She was creating a skin condition as well. So just some slight autoimmunity going on with her. And while I never diagnose anything and I never treat anything directly, right? Just want to get that out there. I don't treat diseases. I don't treat conditions. I coach people that have diseases and conditions. Big difference. Okay. So that's why I never have to diagnose anything. All right. So she had a couple of autoimmune symptoms, had been increasing her weight, and she had attempted about half a dozen times in the last 3 years, some sort of lifestyle transformation or weight loss program. And she'd never been able to sustain longer than a 10-week dedication to a dedicated plan. Right. So what we did is we just went through, we got her base personality type, which tells me her core motivations. It tells me her false core, which is the thing she's most likely to resist in life, and the thing she's really seeking to get fulfilled in her life. And in specific, her false core was she believed she was not accepted. So she felt very quick to sense rejection. And also she had a false core of being unloved. So she was constantly needing to get feedback from her external environment that she was indeed loved. Now, little inside baseball, the secret really with her was to get her to realize how much she was supplementing that love need with other people. And the more we're supplementing whatever our false core is, our false core's desires are, to the degree that we lack that, giving that to ourselves, we're seeking it in other people. So I always like to compare this to a testosterone supplement. Right? If someone goes in, they get their testosterone levels checked and they are, 150 nanoliters per deciliter of testosterone. They want to be around 900 or 1,000, depending on what their age is. And they're going to have to supplement, with 700, 800 nanos per deciliter of testosterone to be normal. Okay, might be high normal, but to be normal. Now we do that with ourselves too, with our emotional body as well. So when it comes to what our false core is, or the thing we're least willing to feel in life, for me, it's feeling powerless, vulnerable, or out of control. The less we are giving to ourselves that, the more we're supplementing. Okay, so this particular lady was like, if we're comparing that to the testosterone supplements, like she was hovering about 50, right? And she's trying to get 900 from everyone else. So that's really where this comes in, and tied into this slowly increasing weight and autoimmune symptoms was separation in relationship and feeling alone, feeling lonely, right? So she was doubling down, right? And actually this was a subconscious driver, from her soul, was like, hey, you need some self-love, right? And she was interpreting self-love, rightly so, as the need to lose some weight, clear up the skin, get the lungs figured out, and just feel better, right? So that's all self-love. So her patterns, so we got her personality, core motivations, false core. We're able to trace that to some of her traumas and some of her triggers. And so this was her pattern. This was the pattern that she was enacting. And again, this was a combination of a couple different people. So patterns were intermixed here, all right? Let's keep that in mind. So about an 8-step process here, right? Actually 7. So first step in her process was she finds herself sensing that something must change, right? Something must change. She knows she's unhappy and she's going the wrong way in life. And then she went to creating anxious energy, anxiety around that thought, around that belief, or around that knowledge. And the conflict the anxiety that she was creating was due to a conflict of two things merging and showing up to the world with these two things merged. And these two things that merged but weren't cohesive in showing up to the world were, I need to change my habits. On one hand, I need to change my habits. And on the other hand is, I don't know how, and I'm not sure if I'm worthy. So you got those, need to change, don't know how, not sure if I'm worthy. And that was kind of the identity and belief structure that was leading her. And she's showing up to the world with that, right? So as you can see, she was in this chronic state of confusion. And then that anxious energy is fueled by thoughts and ruminations triggered by her trauma. So everything that was embedded in her from her past would come back up, and it would be interpreted through the lens of, I don't know, I'm not lovable, I'm not accepted. And then the gravity of that gets too heavy, then she dissociates. She's too stressed out. So she dissociates, goes into a trance, and starts fantasizing about her younger days when she felt great, when she looked amazing, and just better times, right? Gets stuck in this trance of past time. It's a pastime trance. We get stuck in, it's a nostalgic trance. So she goes from one trance to another. Boom, boom, boom. Then she creates a feeling or belief of shame, she creates a feeling of shame, but that's tied to a belief of, I cannot do. I cannot do because I do not know, and I'm not sure if I'm worthy. That leads to more anxious energy, more ruminations. Then she gets deeper dissociated because the trauma level kicks up, the triggers kick up, the energy that she's creating is more and more negative, and you find yourself in a situation where you can't fight or flight, so we kind of freeze or check out, okay? Deeper dissociation pulls her farther from reality. And then she finds herself where it's like, no matter how dissociated you are, you can't ignore the mirror, you can't ignore the mucus building up in your lungs, and you can't ignore the itchy skin. So that snapped her out of her trance in her pattern. So it snapped her out of her fantasizing trance and goes right into another trance of, I am unworthy because I am lovable, because I am bad, and I should be ashamed, right? And then she goes back to step number 1, which was she senses something must change, knows that she is unhappy and going the wrong way in life. This is what we call getting stuck. This is what we call being in our pattern. So that right there, patterning, why we get stuck, that is a thing we need to source. And it doesn't matter if your motivation blockage is coming from not being in touch with your big picture purpose, your dream legacy for yourself, your tribe, and how you want to show up to the world. If it's not having a good handle on your core values and the fulfillment of your needs in life, lost track here. And to find like real time fast acting motivation as well. Like, a good meme, a good video, a good song, like that, all that ties into it. No matter what it is that is causing your motivation leak, getting in touch with your pattern is absolutely critical, because your pattern will show you exactly where you're getting stuck. And knowing what we know about the false core and the core motivations and base personality types and what have you, we can take where you're stuck, tie that right into your core motivations in life, tie that into your biggest fear, your biggest resistance, which is your false core. And from there, we can really get down to why you're getting stuck. It's all about creating these stories, these narratives that are rooted in fallacy, because the false core is not real, but it's rooted in this fallacy. And we tell a story about it. We assign meaning to it and we tell a story. And the more we do that, the more tranced we get. And here's the kicker. Every emotional energy that we create, negative or positive, thoughts, beliefs that we create around that story are all tied into the story. Not a real-time reflection on what is really going on, right? So all of this can be traced back to a number of different things, but a big one that isn't getting talked about, motivation, is how our traumas and our triggers keep us stuck. All right, guys. So that's really all I wanted to cover for you today. I want to keep it short, simple, to the point. I got a few comments here. I'm going to go ahead and highlight those and bring those out. But if anybody has any questions, go and throw them in the comments right now. I hope that makes sense. I hope I didn't go over it too fast. If there's anything that's difficult to understand, put them in the comments, please. But yeah, just want to keep it really simple, guys. It doesn't need to be any more complicated than it needs to be. All right. So just to recap, we get in states because we developed a pattern of dissociating sometime in our life. We all do it. And when something's really important that's hitting us, like the need to get healthy, the need to lose some weight, the need to get fit, the need to get out of pain, that hits us really important. And we know it because that hits on our needs, that hits on our core values, that hits on our big purpose legacy, that hits on all these important things that we might not be in touch with. So that creates a lot of energy potential. And the energy potential is going to be what we do with that energy potential is going to be directly predicated by what we've done with it in the past, because we have a pattern of creating anxious energy or checking out when we get stressed. This highly stressful realization that we need to make a change puts us right into that mode. So this is why we stay stuck. This is why we don't get off the couch. This is why we sign up for those gym memberships and don't go. This is why we buy all that produce at the store and don't cook it and it goes bad. It's this stuff right here. We just dissociate from reality. That's all it is. There's ways we can snap out of it. You can create trances, positive trances that you're gonna have to snap out of eventually anyway. Or you can just snap directly out of your trance, look at it from an observer's perspective, and get real with it. But it all's got to be traced back to our emotional triggers. It's got to be traced back to our false core and our core motivations. I can help you with that. Or you can do some work on your own. Recommend Dr. Stephen Walensky as an author. A couple great titles. Dark Side of the Inner Child is an amazing one. It's a pretty easy read. He's pretty dense in his reading. You might have to read it a couple times. Trances People Live is a really good one. And the Tao of Chaos, which is tied into the Enneagram, which is the personality system that I utilize with my clients. So yeah, it's all about creating dissociation from past traumas. Important events come up that we need to do something about. We might not know what to do, but all our negative self-beliefs come up. We create a story, puts us in a trance. We dissociate. We don't take action. We feel bad about not taking action. We start at the start. Go back to the start. And then we repeat our pattern. Some people do that for decades. Some people do that their entire lives. And some people wake up, figure it out, snap out of it, and change the pattern. Whatever you want to do, you can do. All right. Okay. All right, we got a hi from a Facebook user. Sorry, guys. Someday I'll get a moderator to help me with these lives. It just says Facebook user here. But hi back to you, whoever that is. Cheryl. Yeah, Cheryl. Amazing stories, Cheryl. Being afraid of my panic attacks, not just trauma. Yes. Yes. Cheryl, hope you don't mind me sharing this, but Cheryl thought she was having low blood sugar attacks for years and years and years. And after talking to her about them, and when they were happening, and so they were happening a lot of times, like in the shower, or if I remember right, driving. Cheryl, correct me if I'm wrong. But a lot of times it would happen in these where panic attacks happen a lot. And that is when we're driving or we're in the shower, our mind kind of goes into more of a meditative theta state. And these things come from our subconscious up to the conscious. So Cheryl thought she was having low blood sugar attacks. And I encouraged her to look into that and take a look at panic attacks. And I think we're onto something. I think they are panic attacks. So she's done a great job about sourcing that, dismantling it, and dissolving it. Oh gosh. Yeah. Beautiful. Beautiful. Yeah. Cheryl says, because we're asking everyone but ourselves what ourselves need. Stop signs. Yes. Many stop signs. Stop signs are when we say no to ourselves. Why do we say no to ourselves? Right? Because we think we have an obligation to someone else's desires, someone else's needs, what someone else needs from us to approve of us. Another one here. Yes, I would say that's very true, Cheryl. I think I overextended all the time to always be needed, need for support, but then felt overwhelmed. Yeah, so Cheryl was supplementing with other people, but she was over-supplementing, overextending herself. And I don't mean to speak for you, Cheryl, correct me if I'm wrong, but overextending herself because she wanted that supplement, that feeling of needing support and not being alone and having loyalty from tribe. But also there's a big part of Cheryl that likes to experience life. And so if we overcommit, we take away a lot of experiences that we can have. So, that was her particular dynamic, is her particular dynamic. So yeah, always seeking support. But then when you over enroll in your support, then you're missing out on things in life. And that created anxious energy within her. All right, guys, that's all I got. It looks like we had a few people tune in on Instagram. I don't know if you guys are still on here, but Michael Newstrom, Duke Offet, George Avance, Flip Garcia, Matt 22 MCD, Birdie Gen 10, and Ron Kappas. I thank you all for tuning in. Really appreciate the support. And guys, if this is something you're interested in learning more about, I obviously do this in my one-on-one coaching. I do have a couple spots open right now, but not a lot of openings. So if you're interested, maybe you can get on my waiting list. That might be a better option for you right now at this time. I have also got some group stuff coming out that's going to be very specific. So typically my program is all inclusive. So there's physical assessment. We take a look at, pain in the body. We take a look at neck, shoulder, back, knees, all that stuff. We take a look at diet and lifestyle. We take a look at, how you're managing your triggers, how much happiness you have in life. We take a look at your needs, your core values, all of that stuff. But really, I'm going to start branching out into these specific benefit courses at a much more affordable rate for y'all, and we'll do it in a group format. And so I'm launching my first one starting here in a couple of weeks, and that one's going to be dismantling your triggers, transcending your inner child, transcend, END. Yeah, that's Stephen Walensky. But learn how to transcend your inner child, snap the inner child's trance. Really excited about that one. And as soon as that one gets going, we'll start enrolling for the next one. And if that one's really popular, high demand for that one, we'll just do that one again. If not, we've got all kinds of other things that we can do. So if you're interested in something like that, please drop me a line. You can DM me. You can reach out to me direct, 406-241-3763. Leave a comment down below. I'll get to it as soon as I can. But I appreciate all you guys for tuning in and all your love and support. And it's coming right back at you. All right. Much love, guys. Peace and live well.